that summer, a new house was built on the property adjoining ours, and the occupants had a son, I'll call him John, who was a year younger than myself. I was overjoyed at having someone next door to play with, although since this was in the country, next door was actually several hundred yards away, with an old growth of dark woods between our houses. John and I became best friends and had already made plans to go trick-or-treating in the fall. We played together every day when I got home from school. I was in first grade, and back at this time, the area in which we lived in Tennessee did not have a state-county kindergarten, and as such, it wasn't required by law. I had gone to a private church-run kindergarten the year before, but John's parents elected not to send him to kindergarten, so he was always home during the day. This particular day, I'm assuming it was the early part of September, as I had been to school that day and John and I, as I stated, had already made plans for Halloween. So, as near as I can remember, this happened sometime in September or early October. I had walked over to John's house, but his father told me he had gone to the grocery store with his mom and would be back soon. I walked back home and began playing in my own front yard while waiting for John to return. Since our street was a dead end into the lake with only one way in or past our house, I would be able to see their car when John and his mom returned. Being out in the country, in what was then a semi-rural area, our house sat quite a ways back from the paved road. In fact, our gravel driveway measured exactly 212 feet from our garage to the paved street. I eventually measured this out using a surveyor's tape when I was older and holding bicycle sprint races from the garage to the road and back. Our yard had originally been a rough, wooded area, but had been cleared off before the house was built. At the time of this incident, it was mostly old-growth pine trees and a rolling landscape of small hills and trenches, which my father had sown with meadow grass. It was a boy's dream of a place to play, just enough trees to make it interesting, and enough dips and hills to provide for exciting off-road bicycling. This was in a time prior to the popularity of mountain biking or even BMX, but I am here to tell you that my Schwinn Stingray was a ferocious beast in the dirt as well as a speed demon on the asphalt. Off to the sides of our yard, there was heavy undergrowth and dark, spooky woods to explore. Our property consisted of about 20 or so acres, with less than 5 even partially cleared. For small boys like we were, full of life and fun and adventure, the bucolic countryside setting provided for an idyllic childhood. On this early fall day, I busied myself awaiting the return of my new friend. I was a little over halfway into the yard from the house, so it was a distance of 90 yards. I was well beyond the pines that shaded our house, and I had a very clear line of sight. I made sure of it so I could watch the inverted T intersection, which was right in front of our property. Since the road we lived on dead-ended into the lake, past the intersection, there was only one way in or out. At the intersection, of course, there was 2 ways in and out, and I had a perfect vantage point to view both. I would not miss the return of my friend, regardless of which road his mom drove in on. Shortly, I'd guess it was 15 minutes or so that I had been quietly surveying the road, I watched in anticipation as a car came down the hill in the center of the inverted T where there was a stop sign. As the car rolled downhill to the intersection and came to a stop, I had already begun to walk toward the road as I believed it was John and his mom returning. Suddenly, without warning or with any doors opening on the car, I observed a small child run from behind the car and then dart across directly in front of it. I knew immediately that it was not my 5-year-old friend, but rather a toddler, maybe only a year or so old. My first thought was that the child was going to be run over because the driver wouldn't be able to see something so...